Folks, welcome to an episode of the Artenders with Mac and Dan. I am Dan, he is Mac.
Hi!
Folks, we are finishing freaking putting the keystone into the arch, whatever. Folks,
Screw
we're doing... Okay, look, even though we changed outfits for more visual purposes than anything, I'm gonna, peel back the curtain a little bit, guys. This is a what I like to call a double feature Tuesday.
I love it, man.
And it just means we recorded an episode right before this. Yes, we had just finished recording In the Mood for Love, so I think our mouths are a little bit tired. Just a little bit. This does wear on you a little bit. But with that being said, all the same, we are reviewing the third and final season of the television show series called Dark. I think I've also erred in mentioning, like, this series. So, oh my God.
You're okay.
TV series, Christ.
This German series.
Baran Bo Odar. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but he's a creator and writer of the show and deserves a lot and most of the credit that he gets for its inception, as well as I cannot pronounce that name, but Yantje Friese, maybe.
I follow her on. Sorry, I'm assuming gender here, but I follow them on Instagram, and that's a person that has been extremely influential in specifically the writing process.
Correct. And so, yes, so we have witnessed the end of the story of Vinden, and what's neat about the season, it introduces, a brand new reality, and it finally ties the loop all together. There's a lot to discuss in this episode, and there's a lot to decipher and critique but also understand. So, but Mac, on the front end, I always like to ask this question first and foremostly. What did you think of this season, A, and B, how did this season stack up to the other two? And then, I guess, C, also, so however you want to stab at it, how did you feel this season wrapped up the bow that is Dark?
I thought that overall, I thought that this season was not what I hoped it was going to be.
Okay.
Not as good as I would have imagined.
Because half of it was your first time watching it, right? Like, you had seen like the first half or so.
I'd seen the first half or so,
already.
and I had not seen the last 3 or 4 episodes.
Okay. Now, a lot of things happen to those, kind of.
Right.
Ish.
I
Yes.
think so.
Yeah.
I think that the best episode of this series, and I do not think this is a sizzle serve, I think the best episode of this series is the very last one. I think that season 3, episode 8 is quite beautiful.
The Paradise.
Yeah. I think that they could have made episodes 1 through 7 of season 3 into 1 or 2 episodes.
Oh, whoa. Okay. Yes, and also no.
There's a lot of information that is interesting and useful, but is not needed.
There's a lot of information, specifically, it's what I like to call reruns. It's information that we've already seen, and or like, so the biggest example of it, and agree with me or disagree with me, is us watching. It's like the first episode, I think, of the season, or the second episode. The lives of the alternate universe. Yeah. It is so parallel to, the regular quote unquote world, but there doesn't feel like there's a point to this parallel. It's just to catch us up on, look how similar this world is.
Which they did in the first scene.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I got the concept, or I got the understanding that, there's a parallel universe. That is interesting to me, and I enjoy that.
Yes, structurally, yes.
Yeah, that makes sense. And, they are very similar, for the most part, to the other world. That's really cool. You don't have to tell me those two things 70 times in a row.
That is that's the biggest issue I find structurally to this season, right? That it introduces a lot of interesting structural ideas like the alternate universe, but it does not capitalize on it to its effectiveness, right?
Yeah.
So the things that are new and interesting about, this new world per se, we don't spend a lot of time on. Like an example is we don't get to see a lot of the action that middle-aged alternate Martha goes through. Like that's just like an example
Right.
of that. It's
That's true. We know a lot about all of the other ages of Jonas and all the other ages of Martha, but we do not know about middle-aged Martha. You're right.
Yeah, I mean, but so that's the biggest thing. But we spent a lot of time of Charlotte in the alternate world having an affair with Ulrich. Like there are things in that where, or like the amount of times Magnus was having sex with Franziska, like it was like it felt so inconsequential to the overall storytelling.
Yeah,
it was, in a way, it was similar to a problem that was experienced in the first season, where the story didn't pick the right spots to showcase. That even though, and I think this is going to be a point that I'm going to keep hammering home again and again, that even though the plot was interesting and the plot elements were interesting, the story did not follow suit, and it was, I think it's still a good season, right? And it's still an enjoyable show.
Absolutely.
But I was still frustrated while watching it because the pacing is all over the place. And so then once you find out this other world is a loop, it's like, well, shit,
Right. There are two...
We're hopping all over the place. This is what happens when we record an episode right before this one. Blah.
Is you just start to get a very loose version of Mac and Danny. The big things that really hold this season back for me.
Yeah.
And hold the show back, I think, actually, as a whole, not just the season, is that it's so dependent on the concept. And the concept is such a brilliant one.
Yes.
I really, really love the idea of this show. And honestly, I would have rather watched the writers for several hours figure out the map of this show more than actually watching the show that they made. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, the web of this show and the ideas of the show are more interesting than the execution that they made.
To complement the show, I think it's fair to say I've never seen time travel done this well, and I've never seen something this complicated done. And it was done, like, there aren't that many plot holes considering we're talking about time travel, and considering we're talking about the insane amount of, like, borderline and also actually incestuous relationships.
Absolutely.
That we have.
Almost a Game of Thrones level
and some more.
Incest. Yeah.
And more.
Yeah.
Plus some.
Right.
Extra credit.
Bonus points. Yeah, no, it's pretty gross
I think it's important to, like, give the show that qualification.
Yeah.
There isn't a show structured like this.
Yeah.
Which is good and bad.
Yeah.
Good because there isn't a show quite like this, and it was done really well, and the acting, and this is some of the best casting I've ever seen, period.
Especially in terms of physically.
Yeah, yes. And the breadth of it, the amount, the width of this casting pool.
Uh-huh. That's a big cast.
It is a large cast.
Uh-huh.
It's a cast that, for the characters that are playing, like the same person per se, it's impeccably done, physically and then also acting wise.
Yeah.
It does make me really curious about, like, how it informs these actors of, like, which actors' movements am I, picking up on, et cetera, et cetera.
True.
But, but all the same, like, I think it's really, really important to give the show these points because the show is unique in that way, but also there's a lot to parse through when it comes to structural issues and how watching people discover time travel for the third time is really freaking boring. It's really boring. Having everything, even though you introduce a new mechanic / device to the loop, still having everything be a loop for the most part is still ish boring here and there. But I think what the show does super duper well to sort of finally flip the loop on its head, aside from how they close the loop, which is the introduction of the third world, the origin world, the Triquetra, the Celtic knot.
Which I do like.
Yes.
We'll talk
Is
about
the usage of that moment in space-time where everything stops, and so fate can be changed. And so introducing that where there's one reality where Jonas just goes downstairs and saves his own life from the black hole, and then there's another reality where alternate Martha rescues him and teleports him somehow to the never got clarification on that, but whatever.
Right.
How do they go between worlds? Whatever. And teleports Jonas to the alternate world, and then we see a third one at the end of the show, which is nice. But so then I was finally relieved structurally. I'm like, something new that they introduced to this formula to keep us on our toes.
Yeah.
To make us question once again whether or not this is going to be a new loop, right? And I think it's little moments that really hammers it home of the stranger / middle-aged Jonas straight up being like, I don't remember that happening, when he meets alternate Martha, and alternate Martha explains to him, I traveled you to the other world.
Right.
It's that. And so
and in the same way that moment with Martha where Jonas pulls the trigger and she starts pulling the trigger too, because she's like, you're supposed to kill me right now, and he's like, no.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think some people don't really like it, but I think it works in terms of the time travel structure of this show, that we see another example again of Jonas this time trying to kill himself, and then a younger Noah / Hano, I think, stops him.
Yeah.
And is like, look, I can't kill you right now because your future self already exists. It's sort of flipping it
like no
on
matter
its head.
what. Yeah.
That like you can't dodge fate because your fate has already predetermined where you're going to end up.
Right.
And so because we're trying to work outside of that fate, you can't challenge fate like that.
It's also very, very funny, and I love this, that the idea of fate that we know and that we have become obsessed with as a culture is this idea that there is some outside entity or God that has decided what you are meant to do while you are alive.
Yeah.
And it's interesting.
Predestination, essentially.
Right. Predestination, exactly. It's interesting whenever you're told, because of the whole time travel thing, that this God that has decided what you're meant to do is you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That like you are trapped now by yourself.
Yeah.
And that you are inevitably going to
get out of it because of yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And in that same way, it's kind of beautiful the way that I really actually do love the way they wrap up the show, but really just in episode 8, the last episode.
Yeah.
Like it's just that episode that I like, because that's whenever they not just introduce, because I guess at the end of episode 7 they introduce the idea of the third world, but in the episode 8 they explain the reason the third world is there, and the reason that we exist is because the third world, we're nothing.
And I think, once again, structurally very interesting, and I think that aids the 8th episode. I think it was introduced too freaking late.
Mm-hmm.
Well, because it makes me curious again of how this show is structured, that then they use episode 7 as like, all right, episode 7 is literally them tying as many things up as possible.
Yeah.
That's the purpose of episode 7. I have a problem when shows and movies are structured like that, when you have such a great, or not, to a lesser extent movies, but shows spend such a great amount of time, in this case an entire episode, of literally tying up loose knots in more ways than one. It's literally tying up loose knots. And it's like, okay, so structurally you could not fit what you needed to tell in already 10 episodes, I believe, in the first season, and then 8 in the second and third. And so it felt more true in the third season than the other ones, that they were biting off more than they could chew when it comes to the new structural elements that were good but were not implemented well.
Right.
And in their defense,
That's a good way of putting it.
Super difficult to implement. Once again, we're talking about time travel. Then we introduced an alternate universe. Then we introduced the wiggle room of space-time where fate can be changed a little bit. We introduced those things, and then in the very end, we also introduced the third world, which is actually the origin world. A lot of new things were introduced in this third season that makes me wonder, could some of them have been introduced in the second season? Because it really feels like the second season is just a gap in between the first and the third. That even though like it's not bad, the show is not bad. The show is very well done, and I think also anybody who likes the show, who loves the show, I'm like, right on, makes perfect sense. But I was still frustrated part of the journey because, once again, as you briefly mentioned, how committed the show is to its own concept, to its time travel concept, to its time loop thing that I've been talking about these past 3 seasons, including this one now, where because they're so tied to that concept that when you have character actions not, matter per se, when everything is already predetermined, it hurts to watch,
right?
Because just like you can't change anything.
Yes.
So the moment where the audience believes that they can change something, reinvigorating like crazy.
Yeah.
Because the moment when older Jonas says, "I don't remember that happening," I was like, okay, be a really lazy choice if he has amnesia or something. So I'm going to trust the showrunners that they don't do that.
Yeah.
So then what they're introducing to me is super duper exciting. And then it kind of boils down to, no, the alternate universe is also a loop. Blah,
Yeah, right. I think that this is a constant problem with concept-born television series.
Yeah.
Is that the idea is so exciting, and I agree that this idea is very exciting, that because the director and writer, because it's so high concept and so difficult to explain, they become so obsessed with explaining the concept that they forget that we might come for the concept, audiences come for the concept, but they stay for the characters. And so it's difficult because I think this season was an excellent example of the most frustrating version of that high concept television, which is, I love the concept. I really do.
Yeah.
And that got me through the first and second season. And that made the last episode in season 3 so relieving and so and it capitalized so much. The problem is the rest of the season could have been better if the director and writer, I don't really know who to blame, to be honest. If they cared about the characters as much as I do, because as an audience member, or I think maybe as much as the actors do as well, because how many moments can you think of in season 3 where Jonas and Martha silently look longingly into each other's eyes because they don't know what to do? Like, if I have to watch those motherfuckers stare and silently cry at each other for another second, I'm gonna jump off the goddamn roof.
And in their defense, acting done really, really well.
No, they did the best they could.
But it's structurally in that story, just it being done, fuck, I gotta watch this again? I gotta watch this again?
I know.
I have to watch this again?
And so it's difficult because it's like, wait, if this is supposed to be some sort of emotional payoff, it's not. It's not doing it for me. And so it's sad because I started to become frustrated with Martha and Jonas, so much so that by the last episode, I know for a fact that if I would have skipped most of season 3 and gone straight from season 2 to the last episode of season 3, I probably would have cried. It's just so grand and so extraterrestrial. It's so supernatural. Sorry, is I guess the word I was trying to say. All of the things that happen to them and that their love, it's not just a matter of it being destined or it being a matter of fate. It is like cosmic attraction. It is above all other love. It's this awesome thing, and it's a beautiful idea that I don't care as much about anymore.
it's the plot versus story dilemma. You can have as interesting as a plot as possible, but if it messes up the storytelling, then you're shooting yourself in the foot.
Right.
Sorry, go ahead.
I think it comes back to what we were talking about with season 2, which is, again, I've talked about this many times since we talked about it last with other people that I know, because it's very applicable. The dramatic inflation idea that we had, right? Where it's like the more secrets that you have, the less I care about the secrets, which is why something like Little Women is so successful, is because there's only like 1 to 2 secrets per person in Little Women. And that's why it's so interesting to watch, is because whenever the secrets come out, they mean that much more.
Yeah.
Whereas in this show, there is a realization or an epiphany that happens every 30 fucking seconds. So I care less and less about them. In the same way.
Because every thought experience, too, for those characters is like, shit, I was feeding into the loop.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the same experience.
It's the same epiphany.
Again,
it's the same realization.
And again.
And I understand that the characters are frustrated that this is happening, but the audience shouldn't feel frustrated in the exact same way or at the same pace, because then I'm not frustrated with the characters. I'm frustrated at the show.
Yes.
Which is so annoying. It's so annoying. But in the same way of like the dramatic inflation, I kind of felt the same way about like the emotional payoff moments in season 3.
Right.
That every single time that they were sad and Jonas and Martha were staring at each other and were like, oh, but I wish we could have been together. I'm like, okay, we've had so many of these that I don't fucking care anymore.
Yeah. Oh, God. Oh, my God.
It's so sad, though, because I really do love those characters. And I really, really did love them in season 1 and season 2. But in season 3, the first half just was a beating as an audience member. And it was difficult, especially because, like I said, I watched the first couple episodes of season 3, and then I waited. And then I watched the last couple episodes last week, right? Yeah. In order to like work my way up. And I'm glad that I did that. But here's the one problem that happened. Is that I got sick. I got COVID, right? I got Omicron. For those that didn't know, I got Omicron over the break.
Congratulations.
Yeah, like around Christmas time. And thank you, Mazel Tov. But but the problem with that is that I had so much extra time that I ended up watching all of Game of Thrones.
The fuck were you doing?
I thought it was either that or just like twiddling my thumbs.
I would have like rewatched The Wire before I would rewatch Game of Thrones. Okay, sorry.
This is the thing. I haven't watched Game of Thrones all the way through. Okay. That was my first viewing.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So I had watched seasons 1 and 2 of Game of Thrones, and then I'd watched the entire thing over again.
Yeah.
While I was sick. And the problem is that that show is so fucking good about closing arcs and loops and capitalizing on moments and characters.
Oh yeah.
That by the time I came back to Dark, I was like, I don't fucking care about any of you anymore. Which was sad because I really did. I did so much.
I will say that's the case for the most part on Game of Thrones until like the last like 2 seasons. Dear God, how I feel about that show is like a really bad breakup with an ex-girlfriend.
That's so sad.
I would never rewatch that show again.
Okay, so this is the thing though, is that because I agree that season 7's trash. I agree with that, and everyone hates season 7, but I actually like season 8 quite a lot. A lot of people disagree, but I actually like season 8. I hate season 7. I can understand why people hate season 7. But that's maybe for another day. That
is absolutely for another day. And when I say another day, I hope it's never a day. Because I swear to God, if you pick Game of Thrones, I will kill you.
No, I'm not going to pick Game of Thrones.
Thank God. I don't.
That would be an entire season of the Artenders. Like, I can't do that to the show. I would be ruining the show unless we did the Game of Thrones in one episode.
Point being, one of the worst things Dark does in this season is is how they implement unknown / quote unquote the origin / Jonas and Martha's son. Holy shit. What a waste of a character.
I agree. Oh my God. I cannot agree more.
It is a character literally alive to tie knots. It is that character is literally a plot device. Now I understand
it's a walking plot device.
And I understand structurally because of how the time loop thing is structured, everybody per se is a plot device.
But not like that.
Every single one of those characters have character, right?
Everyone wants something.
Including characters that you barely get any screen time with. Celia, I think, is a really good example. I feel like there is some character to Celia. I don't feel like she's that much of a plot device. Who becomes Bartosh's wife.
Oh, yeah.
However, holy shit, I have never seen such a walking, breathing plot device in my goddamn life.
Well, here's the other thing.
Really fast.
Yeah.
Because, so Jonas's / Adam, let me specify, Adam's motivation to do what he's doing is to, and finally we got some real clarification, I think, in this season, is to literally just end the universe, so this time bullshit just doesn't have to happen anymore, because death is more of an escape than what's happening right now.
Because the real paradise is nothing. Because this is hell.
It's sort of like escapism.
Right.
Then you have Eva.
And that they made it religious was actually kind of smart. I liked the way that they handled it.
Yes. And then you have Eva, who is the Martha equivalent to Adam's Jonas's Adam, whatever. Where her whole purpose, like why she wants to keep the whole time thing alive, is to keep her son alive. Okay, so like I'm willing to give a little bit of benefit of the doubt of, we're not, both of us, Mac, you and I, we're not parents, so we do not feel, we cannot empathize with that. We can sympathize, but we cannot empathize with the unexplainable words feeling of having to keep, well, I think I heard a shout outside or something.
Yeah, I hope
that
no
was
one's
wild.
dead. Okay.
Of keeping her son
alive. Right.
However, why?
Yeah.
Because that son is nothing. You are nothing.
Right.
I have no idea why Eva is motivated, even in the slightest, aside from him being her son, to keep him continually alive. For what fucking purpose?
Also, they were like, your son is the loop, like he is the origin. And it's like, no, he's not. He's clearly not. We've established several times that he's not.
Yeah.
Right. But also, like, it's frustrating to me, just like you said, whenever they're like, but Martha, like, this is your son, like, or like, isn't it crazy to feel that your son is in front of you? And then she like gets emotional and starts, and she goes to kill Jonas. And I'm lost there. Like, in that moment, I agree. I had the exact same thought. I was like, why do you care about your son?
Why does she feel that great of a need?
Yeah.
Like need enough to like, oh my god, this is my son. Okay, I feel the duty to protect him. But to the lengths that she goes to, I'm like, what the? Like, they're
right.
It did not track for that character also, to have that motivation, is what I'm trying to get at.
Right. I want to talk about more about that character. I don't even know his name. Jonas and Martha's son.
The unknown.
Who fucking cares?
Yeah, that's a beep.
Whenever we come back from a word from our sponsor.
Thank you. The fact that this character has literally no name is poetic.
Perfect
to
testament.
The lack of character that this character has.
Yeah,
also, just like, I'm edgy and dark. I'm scary. Ooh, that's my character. Boring as shit. Sorry.
In that same vein, in the exact same vein. Thank you.
I just want to lead with that because I'm like, that's perfect.
I agree.
Magnifique.
A very similar thought that I had last segment was that I think it's funny because I wanted to compare him to Frankenstein. But the funny thing is,
the monster?
Yes, the Frankenstein's monster. The funny thing is, though,
almost a fine.
That, I know, so close. That Frankenstein's monster is actually more human and way, way more of a character than that character would ever be.
Yeah, it's a teaching moment through that character, like, and thematically.
Well, also, like, so what we learn in acting theory, and the thing that we're told that every single time that we are on stage, and that we're in a character that is exploring the human experience, which is ideally every character you ever play. The thing that makes them human is the fact that they want something, or that is something that is distinctly human-esque. So it's weird that this character literally doesn't want anything.
Yeah.
It is quite literally a tool. I don't know exactly who he works for. I'm assuming he just works for
It's
Eva.
Eva. Yeah. But
if so, he never talks. He never does anything other than just go and do chores to make sure that the time loop stays.
Yeah, he just kind of says, hey, what we know is a drop, what we don't know is an ocean, and then just kills people and then has time loop things happen.
Right.
But, like, would have been so much more interesting, right? If this character was actually explored, if this character had wishes, ambitions, desires, hates, loves, whatever, anything. A name, for one.
Yeah.
Was it that impossible to give this motherfucker a name?
Right.
Really?
Yeah.
Just to keep us in suspense? But whatever. Like, you could have still teased that, like, he is the origin point and not really give him a name. But, like, Eva doesn't even address him with a name. Like, what is... It's such a lack of humanity.
Yeah. But that's a perfect example of no writer that cares about the story just as much as the concept would ever let that happen.
Exactly. It sounds really cool. It sounds like wumbo jumbo anime bullshit, like edgy, edgelord, cool stuff.
Yeah. Anime bullshit. I love that. You're right. You're right on the money.
And so then when it's actually explored on screen, it's just like, oh wow, that's really boring.
Right.
It feels like a 15-year-old wrote that for his D&D campaign. That's what that felt like.
I would love to get your take on what did you think of the last scene where they're at dinner and there's like is that an earthquake? Is apocalypse, whatever? But like in the real world.
Okay, so
in the origin world.
Right, the origin world that Tenhouse makes a time machine, and what's really, really cool is that Tannhouse's time machine eliminates his own world, creates and splits off 2 new ones that are stuck in a time loop. And how it sort of resolves itself is Jonas and alternate Martha going back in time in the origin world to stop the origin event, which is Tannhouse's child, his son, grandchild, I don't remember, and daughter-in-law dying in a car accident. And so they stopped that from happening. And what's really cool is that, so Tannhouse creating the machine and then not even, and how it fixes itself is 2 angels, quote unquote, descending down. And then, so what actually fixes itself is a reality that Tannhouse actually never made the machine. And so he will never know that his time machine worked, per se. Very cool. I love that.
Yeah.
And then, so that is all capstoned with now in the present day, which is like 2019, 2020, whatever, of, some of the characters that weren't intrinsically involved with the time loop mumbo jumbo, which is like barely any, which is crazy to think about.
They had to like grab some characters that we haven't seen in seasons that we were like, wait, where the fuck were they?
Yeah, the sex worker whose name I keep forgetting.
And you're like, these are the only people that weren't affected
by
Voller,
he's there too. Okay.
Yeah, right, cool. Exactly.
It's like, Regina, you're a character. That's right. You're not just a device for Claudia. Sorry.
True.
So sorry about that.
No, don't be. You're right.
And I think it speaks to the show's structural element. I'm like, oh my god, that many people were involved in the time loop that if you take that out of the equation, they don't exist. That's insane. And also really cool. But, so how did I feel about that scene? Finally, to get to that point, to give the proper framing for the audience. I liked it. Because I think it's important to show to the audience what the world looks like without, the alternate dimensions of Vinden. I think it's important to show, like, how much happier these people are without these interferences. That even though, like, Hannah's huge gaping hole of need is Ulrich, to have that out of the equation, she's so much happier without him. Same thing for Katarina. You take that gaping hole of need out, and then so different things actually fill that hole, and it's like, and so because of the lack of the timeline mumbo jumbo, she is so much happier than before. These people are at peace, as opposed to being haunted by the shadow that is like the time loop. So I actually think it's really important for the emotional payoff for the audience to get that experience of things ended up being okay and things ended up being the way they were supposed to be. And that's good. There
are a few things that I'm still sort of fuzzy on.
Hit me with 'em.
I'm wondering if you got any answers that I missed. So Jonas and Martha were not real in the origin world, like, or they didn't exist yet, at least.
Yeah.
In the origin world, correct?
Yeah. They had to do some Back to the Future bullshit of they have to create the event that stops the origin in order to cease themselves.
Right. So I guess I'm confused. Why were they the origin? Like, why were they the one? You know what I mean?
Why, like, those iterations of Jonas and Martha?
Like, why were they the ones that had to be the ones to stop the time machine? Why couldn't it have been, like, fucking Bartosz or something?
I mean, from a now, like, this is the thing where, like,
they
from a
really
plot
them...
point of view, like, it has to be Jonas and Martha, right?
Absolutely.
Because they are, like, the biggest players in this game.
Right. But now, in terms of, because we have established that for some God knows why reason, the concept is the most important thing. In the concept, why are they the chosen ones? Because they're really made out to be the chosen ones.
I don't know.
Me
It's
neither.
just how things happen.
I guess.
So
it's just frustrating to me that, like,
but what you're asking is, like, why is the plot structured like this? I don't know. But, like,
I
why.
think that Claudia could have just as easily gone and been the person to stop the timeline.
And this is a question. If you, like, do a little bit of, like, a deep dive, which I have, of course, because I'm a nerd sometimes, like, into, like, the subreddit for this show.
Sure.
People have these questions too. Like, this is a question I've seen before.
Yeah.
Nobody really has an answer because it's just like, that's just how the show was done.
Here's one that isn't as much of a Reddit question that I feel like must have been answered and I just missed it.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Oh God.
Tana House?
I don't know.
Tana Han?
I don't know.
What's his name?
Tannhaus? Or the scientist?
Yes. Sorry. I forgot his.
Let me throw a random,
suffix.
Just like, noises at you. See if you can piece them together like a jigsaw puzzle. Thanks, Matt.
Chill. Okay. Tana House. He was the one that made the time machine.
Correct.
Originally. But his only worked in the 33-year increment thing.
Here it is.
The ball.
Yeah. Escapes
Where did
that
that
rule.
come from?
Yeah. I like, and so, like, I assume
because I love
version. It's that world's version, but then it seems like the ball could break that 33-year rule thing.
But in the split worlds, Tannhaus doesn't know how to make the time machine, other than it being brought to him.
Yeah, and I assume so
I don't know who would have made it.
So this is also the issue with introducing the alternate world. It shows us all the wrong things.
Yeah.
Because that's a good and valid question that you have, right? Of critical moments that happen in this timeline or in this reality are not shown. So we're just left to infer, well, I guess Martha was the one that did that instead of Jonas.
Yeah.
But wasn't Claudia also a player? So I guess Claudia was a player in that too.
And I think that
But it must have been the same Claudia, because Claudia then became a doppelganger of alternate Claudia. So then we are left to, like, fill in the gaps. And so then it makes me quasi frustrated of, like, you introduced this new concept of the alternate world and you could not, finish it off,
right?
Per se,
like, if you were a show that prides yourself on detail to the point where, like we said, and we have given it this praise, time travel, alternate dimensions, one of the best shows, hands down.
Yeah,
but because of the detail.
Yeah.
But there are a couple things that they introduce that they're like, and we don't really have time to tell you about that.
But you know what's funny? It's a catch-22 because if they did show that, then we would be pissed at the show because
true.
I'm like, you're doing the same thing.
Right. You're right.
So it's like,
it would have been better as a novel. Let's be honest.
Yes. Okay.
I want an explanation.
Thank you. I had this thought as I was watching this season. I was like, I would have much rather, like, read this as opposed to watch this.
Yeah.
Because
I want it explained to me.
Yeah, and I'm curious, like, how that works. God, but yeah, the amount, it's also, structurally in this season, again, the amount of explanations there is for things happening, so much more when you compare it to the first season where instead of explanations, it's experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but then, once again, it's a catch-22. You can't have, and even they already break that rule sometimes too, you can't have, these characters kind of, experience these things again because we've already seen that. But so then you're resorting to explanations, but then explanations are boring storytelling devices because you're doing it all the time.
Yeah.
All of that to say, like, there are structural issues that this show writes itself into a corner.
Yeah.
And it can't possibly deliver it on, especially when you have 2 seasons setting up one world. You introduce an alternate one at the beginning of the 3rd season. You cannot possibly capitalize that to its fullest in one season by itself. And then it's also, you're still committing to the concept that is the time loop, that it's going to be like either way, that even though the acting and the cinematography and the lighting and the casting is all so well done, because the story cannot do that structure justice, because that structure is holding the story hostage.
Oh, that's a really good way of putting it. I love that imagery, Danny. The structure and the concept is holding the story hostage. I agree. I cannot agree any more with you. And I think that, honestly, I would be more okay as an audience member with the amount of unanswered questions that we have at the end of season 3 if it wasn't for the fact that I can think of 100 moments that they showed us in season 3 that I would have rather been getting the answers to those questions. Like, if I could have replaced one of those, oh, but I love you and we're perfect for each other moments with an answer to the little ball time machine thing, and an answer to the like a little more depth for Jonas and Martha's unnamed son.
Yeah.
Are you okay there?
Bro, I was coughing my lungs.
I'm so sorry.
I'm talking so much.
Yeah, no, I get that. I feel like if I would have gotten those moments, then I wouldn't have been as upset. You know what I mean?
I think so.
Like, it's not as much that there were unanswered questions. It's that there were unanswered questions in low of a bunch of shit that I didn't care about.
Yeah. Or a parallel that we didn't have to see and wasn't in service of the story.
Right. This is the phrase that kept coming to mind as I was watching season 3. And this is what was so disappointing. It's not that I was thinking this is bad. I never thought this is bad. I just got to a point.
Well done.
It really is. I just got to a point where I was like, I just kept thinking this phrase, and I was trying so hard not to think it, but I kept thinking the phrase, I don't think I care anymore.
Yeah.
Like, there were so many moments where I was like, I love this show, but I don't think I care anymore.
I was just trying to get
tired.
to the end.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, because
then episode 8 happened.
But it was the light at the end of the tunnel. I'm like, maybe the end actually introduces something new, and we can finally break this structure.
Right.
But
then I'm like, okay, let's just get to
then I'm
episode
focusing
8.
so much on the destination, I cannot possibly enjoy the journey. Cannot.
But the moment that that Jonas and Martha go into that, like, interstellar world in episode 8, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they start looking through the mirrors and shit, and like they like walk off into the abyss. All of that, I was there every moment.
Yeah.
Captivated.
Yeah.
For that entire thing.
I'm like, because the show earned our trust and respect to that point of just like, fuck it, introduce something weird, whatever, because it's just like, even if you can't possibly explain it, like, I think it's honestly a testament to the acting that just to watch, like Lewis Hoffman and
Lisa Vickery.
Thank you. To watch those actors go through that experience, I'm like, that's a treat. That's a treat.
Yeah.
And so if you're gonna put them in that situation, and even though it's like weird as hell, whatever, sure.
Yeah.
Even though
I do like both of them.
even though if
they're
you
dating
tried,
in real life.
That's adorable.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that's the cutest thing you've ever told me.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah,
Oh my god.
I mean, I hope they're still together. But last I checked, they're still together.
That's so dang cute.
Yeah, right?
I don't want to talk about anything else, which is not a good idea because
know.
we have like over 10 minutes left, but it's just like
Doesn't that just light you up?
that. Oh my god.
You
need to pick a new topic because I'm gonna
think about that for a
living in
while.
this for a minute.
Great. Another thing that I thought about that really bothered me. I know that we have a long list already, but I'm going to add to that list.
I'm so happy.
Something that really bothered me in that moment where they're in the Interstellar, right?
I like how we're just calling it the Interstellar.
But
Spoilers, I guess.
But you know exactly what I mean.
Yeah, it's that weird dimension of like lights everywhere, lights up.
Yeah, like the little splashy lights that. Yeah, it looks like 2001: Space Odyssey as well.
Sure.
I think they kind of took from that. It bothered me that they weren't floating; they were standing.
Of all things to pick at.
I know.
Of all things to nitpick at.
But it made it look really corny.
It did look corny. Sure. Like
if they were
speaking,
floating,
yeah, sure.
it would have looked cool. But because they were standing, it looked corny.
But I think...
Does that make any sense? Because then you're like, there's a green screen because you're standing on a ground right now.
Oh, yeah. Also, like, the visual effects, like, it was really, really done well for everything in that show.
Except for the last fucking moment.
Yeah, it required so much of a budget that, like, or time that they just didn't have. It's just like, that's right, green screen. I forgot. That's right.
All they had to do, just rope them up. Just have them roped up.
Nah, bro, I think that would have looked worse.
Like them floating?
Yeah, dude.
You think so?
Yeah.
Oh, I would have been way more down with the floating than that.
Whatever.
Because the standing, I'm just like, so what are you standing on then?
Who cares? At that point, like that. I mean, I'm hand waving because I'm like, sure, we can nitpick that if we want.
Yep.
But it's just like that's like at that point, I was like, fuck it, something new. I like. You know, I was just taking any win
new
I could get.
And that's the truth, though. Yeah. I really, that really was it. It was a matter of just anything new, please, for the love of all that's good and holy in the world. I also didn't know who or what significance Bartosz's wife had, because doesn't she grow up to be somebody important?
Bartosz's wife? I mean, aside from being, you know, the mother to Hanno and Agnes, like she is Celia, who was in the vast future timeline, who was helping Elizabeth, and then is also Hannah and Egon's daughter.
I forgot all about her. That makes so much more sense. Yeah. You're right.
More character than a really important character that is the unknown, who literally didn't have a name. But you know, not by much.
Whatever. The other thing that there was another moment in season 3 that I really loved that I think also came really late as well. I think either episode 7 or 8. It was whenever middle-aged Jonas goes into the room in the 1800s and kills his mom. God, in front of the little girl, and then takes the little girl,
because that's when he's starting to really become Adam, and it's just like,
because you wonder literally the entire series,
how does Jonas become Adam?
Exactly.
The moment you figure out and or find out that Jonas is Adam, how does that happen?
Yeah, you're like, what? How does that? What? And
does it track?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Certainly doesn't track with Martha's Eva.
No,
certainly doesn't track.
There is no reason that they've given, but
not there's no reason. The reason was sure as shit not strong enough.
Right.
Definitely to
the sun. Yeah,
because when you have a time loop, you need to have the actions of those characters be motivated like a motherfucker.
And I understand why.
So they don't feel like devices. So they don't feel like just plot points.
I understand why that would be a good motivating factor for middle-aged or older Martha. But I don't understand how a teenage Martha could have the maturity and the wherewithal for her to care that much about this unborn child that she doesn't have any.
Especially when
who's also creepy as shit.
Thank you, because
If you were like, this is your son, I would be like, poor kid. Like, what did I do to you? What did I do to you?
Yeah.
Abstinence. That's the first word I think of whenever I see that person. It's like, I wish that person was never born.
Holy shit.
That's not true. I'm sure that he's a lovely guy.
You just went and said it.
Nah, I was just trying. I was playing around.
God.
It's just fun to say shit sometimes. But yeah, I don't think that it really tracks for me on Jonas either, because like him turning evil, because all there really was is that he was stuck in the 1800s for so long that he eventually went crazy. That's what I was left to interpret.
Yeah,
right.
And because he became more crazy, became more motivated to end the whole thing, and so was gonna do that at whatever it takes.
And I would have been okay if, again, instead of you showing me all of this useless bullshit that I don't care about, if you would have shown me maybe a montage, even one, or like little clips over time of middle-aged Jonas very slowly but surely descending into madness, or descending into there's no point and all hope is lost.
We didn't get I think you're absolutely correct, because we didn't get enough of those.
We didn't get enough middle-aged Jonas. We didn't get enough montages.
Specifically. Also, hold on. Another thing for the show, the most Grey's Anatomy bullshit ever. I hate when shows do this. Fucking end shows with, this is the song for this episode.
Yeah.
And like, let's have a montage, instead of just doing the story well in its structure. Whatever. Yes. We did not we did not get enough of the sort of like ticks in the boxes for middle-aged Jonas the Stranger to become Adam. The most that we got was like one scene of him trying to fix something and he gets electrocuted on his arm. Like that was like the most that I can think of off the top of my head, and maybe there is one or two that I'm forgetting, but that is what's speaking to me at the moment. And so then once again, it's an issue structurally for the show where if you cannot possibly fit in character motivations that make perfect, crystal clear sense, it's hard. It's difficult to watch. It's difficult to witness. And so, like, I think what makes season 1 such a treat for the most part is that those motivations are so clear and so tangible for all those people. Like, Ulrich, I think, is a really great example of how he tries to kill Helga,
Yeah.
So that's the issue that I have in regards to that. So when you have such a pivotal player like Adam, and then you don't have enough of the ticks in the boxes for the Stranger to become Adam, then you are trivializing the structure of the show because of how big of a part Adam is, which you're already doing with Eva because of how you structured and explored that.
Yeah.
You spent so much time structuring and exploring other things that you forgot about the most important things in the service of the story. And so that is where this season was really lacking,
Mm-hmm.
So I think...
How did you like it in comparison to the other seasons? Because you talked about...
I thought it was better.
Not liking first season and liking second season a little bit better.
I think this show... This is kind of tying to the end of it all now. Stepping away from the show, I like the show a lot more than while I was in it. I appreciate the show a lot more now than I did while I was watching the show. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, after watching all 3 seasons, season 1, I think, is the best and is the tightest. Season 2 is fine. It just feels like a bridge between 1 and 3, kind of. Like, it's just like story things happen to these people. It didn't feel like there was something there at the end of the road for that season. Season 3, I think they introduced cool new devices, but they did not explore them effectively, and the story suffered because of it. Even though this is some of the best acting and cinematography, and definitely casting. So I think the big question, Mac, is it's a big moment. It's a big time for us.
Here
as
it
I'm
is.
filibustering.
Yep.
Guys, we're at a 2-minute warning.
2-minute warning, y'all.
Do you recommend this show, Mac?
Do I recommend the show? Yes. Tentative, yes. I honestly, I would recommend more than the show itself, having a conversation with someone who's seen the show about the show. Yeah. I think that the concept's cool. I think that it's worth, like, thinking about. It's a cool thought experiment, but I feel like it's something that you learn in a philosophy class more than you do in the format of a show. I think that season 3 is for me, I might go season 2, season 1, season 3.
Okay.
Maybe season 2, season 3, season 1. Because there are some redeemable moments in season 3 that make me go, okay, I wasn't watching the show for nothing. But season 3 is just so frustrating because I cared so much and they didn't in the same ways. What about you?
They didn't in the structure. Like, I think they did care about those characters.
Right. It's just that they had priorities and they weren't the same as mine.
Yeah.
Would you recommend the show?
Even though it was a frustrating experience, yes, I do recommend the show because I'm interested in what other people think.
Yeah.
Because I'm trapped in my own void of like talking to you about it and like reading up Reddit posts. I'm like, I feel like I'm the only person that feels this way about this show.
Right.
But like, the good parts to the show are fantastic.
Yeah.
I think
and
the bad
also,
parts
it's not
to
a
the
hard
show,
watch.
Bad. Yeah, I don't think it's a hard watch.
It's brisk and it's fun.
Honestly, I think most people will like this show.
I agree.
I think we are just in the minority when it comes to that. Mac, you hit the microphone. Yes! Yes!
No, my God. Okay,
Yes!
well, you're running out of time, asshole. What are we watching next week?
We're watching a movie that just came out, directed and written by Adam McKay.
Oh, my God.
It's
You're
about
kidding.
COVID, but it was written before COVID.
I hate you. I've already seen it a million times.
Don't Look Up.